Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another evening of TEE action, and we are here tonight to bring you the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's not just me tonight, as I said. It's myself, and it is Max Ring alongside me. Good evening, Max. How are we?
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be back once again for another week, and I'm very good, Cockcast. How are you on this Wednesday evening?
I'm good. I'm very excited. So let's not delay it any further. Let's get straight into the action for this evening's race, and we've got Q1 around the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix circuit that's coming up ahead of us. It's gonna be an exciting race. We've got a couple of names on this grid that me and Max were just talking about pre-broadcast that maybe are returning to TE, returning to racing in general. But yeah, I mean the names Conrad Bohm and Nando Moreira, they barely need any introduction. But to those of you who aren't aware, Conrad Bohm, he came in to the qualifiers and he was absolutely dominant, just demonstrating incredible pace. He's now done another couple of leagues and been, well, equally as dominant, but we'll have to see how he fares as we head around the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And then, yeah, Nando Moreira returning to league racing action with TTM. He was previously of the Thomas Enger team that now has Tamas Kokeni and Conrad Bohm as their lineup for this evening. But interesting dynamics are starting to be created.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, we'll see how Moreira races against the Thomas Eng boys. That'll be interesting to see. How does he have a little bit of love lost? Does he go a little bit more aggressive just to say, I'm still here, I just left because I wanted a break, but I've still got it? Or does he just somewhat have a little bit of chill time with them, just not push him too hard? He still has that love for the team and just race as cleanly as everybody else. But we are out for Q1. Of course, there was some notorieties after last week event. Flores Fires wasn't actually meant to race. He wasn't actually allowed to race, so he was disqualified overall. So Marcel Pabst ending up getting pole position in the end, and that meant Thomas Eng lost a huge chunk of points through this as well. I think with a collision with one of the TF10 drivers, of course. Don't forget, last week we had those technical issues where we weren't able to stream the race or watch the race, unfortunately. But Thomas Eng also had a collision with TF10, which then now has one of their drivers, I'm not sure who, with a 5-second time penalty. I don't know who that is, but one of those drivers have a 5-second time penalty looming over them for the entirety of this evening. So that's something to look out for as well. And yeah, so it's going to be an interesting race here this evening. Might as well quickly tell you who won last time out in Portimao, and that was, if I can find the right channel, it was Lewis Walker from, I think it was 17th on the grid. So a brilliant drive there from Lewis, giving FVR a real good haul of points. And if one of the FVR boys could do the same here this evening, that would be really good.
Yeah, with Thomas Lang and Marnik lining up, it's two new drivers who have been brought to attention, and two new drivers who hopefully will be able to perform as well as they can for FBR. Sasha Neeb at the moment with the dominance over the grid, a 10th and almost a 10th and a half ahead of Lucas Beisner in second. But these runs at the moment, they don't matter too much because they are the intermediate runs. They're the bank laps just to really get yourself ready to the conditions, and IRT Sam across the line. He heads into 6th place. All the drivers actually doing these runs, and well, I say all the drivers. Matthew Bassett, he's gone for a push lap, so you'd expect him to take provisional pole position. Indeed, he does. Only 2 seconds faster than Sasha Neeb in the Mercedes in the ATX car. The only other driver on a push lap at the moment is Oliver Knott, and it's not looking like this is a push lap at all. Yeah, well, one, he's on the intermediate tyres, two, he went incredibly slowly in that final sector, and he's completely lost it on the exit of the next corner that we watched him. So I'm sure he is regretting the fact that we were able to see that. But yeah, that's his first lap out of the window. We've got about half the grid, though, staying in the pits for the time being. To be fair, it's about half and half split between one driver coming in and, well, not setting a lap on the inters. One driver going out. The only exceptions to that are Thomas Enger and TTM, who have stayed waiting in the pit lane for their first lap. But yeah, 9 lap sets, one of which is competitive, and that is of Matthew Bassett, 122.8.
Yeah, Matthew Bassett, of course, last time out, just scraped into Q3 by the skin of his teeth, nearly getting knocked out in Q1, and then nearly knocked out again in Q2, but dug deep and brought out a really nice lap in that second part of qualifying. And he's the only driver to have set a competitive lap time on those Red Wall soft tyres. Most drivers went out on the intermediates there. That's usually just to save a set of softs for later on in the qualifying sessions for Q3, most likely, or if you need a spare set in Q2, there you go. You've got an extra fresh set of rubber. But yeah, that's why most drivers go on to the intermediates. It also helps them test if their setup is working, and that is exactly what majority of the field has done. And talking about the majority of field, everyone but Gregory Russell is in the pit lane, and Russell now going out for a competitive lap time into turn 1 down to 4th gear, run it all the way out wide, a little bit wide from the turn 1 apex as he heads through turns 2 and then 3. These two are both flat out, maybe a little bit of a slide there, taking too much curb through turn 3, force that kink left as you head into the late braking of turn 5, the hairpin. Very easy to outbrake yourself, run a little bit deep, and that will affect your momentum. Down into turn 6, you'll see the drivers sitting in the middle of the road down this straight, because you lose a lane on the right hand side, and that instantly brings you over to the outside of the extremities of the track limit. So into turn 6 and 7, Gregory Russell a bit deep into the corner. It's been a very scrappy lap so far from the ZNT driver in the Haas DRS Open. Once again, as he heads through turn 8, what's it going to be in the middle sector? It's going to be a 52.7, apparently purple as he heads through turn 9. Once again, very wide from the apex. He's not had the greatest of runs so far. Been very, very scrappy. Loads of time that can be found in this lap as he heads through turn 12. A bit deep through there. It's going to affect his run through 13 and 14. Be careful where you pick the power back up here. Nicely done, though, to keep the car facing in a straight line through 15 and then late braking into turn 16. Another corner that can catch you out on the brakes. It does Russell, so he heads up to the line. What is this going to be? A 23.037. Only 2 tenths off Matthew Bassett, but still, that seemed like a very scrappy lap so far, Kaz. I think you might have muted your mic.
I mean, I've not done that in a while. But there we go. Yeah, Gregory Russell joining Matthew Bassett on the front row. And his teammate, Sasha Neeb, he was the leader on the intermediate tyres. He's come out onto the softs to see what sort of time he can set. Quite a few of the drivers are out, all but Oliver Knott, Thomas Lang, Marcel Pabst and Lewis Jones at the moment. Although Lewis Jones proves me wrong. He comes out of the pit, and the NLR drivers, both of them actually, have come out. So everybody, apart from the two in 5th and 6th, have come out at the moment. I'm sure that we'll be seeing the FVR driver and the ET8 driver coming out onto the track to set their next push lap. But Sasha Neeb at the moment, he's a second up on his previous time, but a big slide into the final sector. That shows that maybe he's not in full control of this lap. Around the final couple of corners, he's going to need to find some decent time if he's going to be even up there with Matthew Bassett and Gregory Russell at the moment on track to pick up just a high 23, which will be an entire second off Matthew Bassett, an entire second and a half of the new pole sitter, Marcus Olmedo, who came around the final corner with a 122.4. Sasha Neeb, big wobble on the exit, and it's only a 123.5. Now attention turns to Marnik, who takes the provisional pole position. Then Nando Moreira, who, well, he's heading through the first sector. I was looking at his teammate, Lighty. But, yeah, more drivers coming across the line to set their times. And it'll be the first real competitive times for a lot of the drivers. Joel Lindstrom, for example, this is his first actual valid lap, and he's going to come around the final corner, the V-carb, to set a time that's going to be enough for, well, not sure what's happened there, because it didn't say it was invalid. There we go, he's up to second place, just off Marnik in that pole position spot. Switching attention now to Conrad Bohm, who comes around the final corner, and he's 3 tenths faster than everybody else. Welcome to the stage, Conrad Bohm. His teammate in the meantime, he is coming around the final corner, Tamas Kokani, he can go up and beat Conrad Bohm's time. So a 1-2 for Thomas Enger Sim Racing. Thomas Lamanen going into that third spot at the moment. But these two, they dominated in the qualifying night. They've come back together for Abu Dhabi. And, well, they're really setting the stage.
Throwing the gauntlet down once again from Thomas Eng. Of course, last time out in Portimao, they topped Q1, Q2, and it would have been Q3 if Flores Flyers wasn't ineligible. So once again for Thomas Eng, they're looking to just try and keep that momentum going in qualifying, and that's exactly what they are doing so far. 2 tenths clear of the rest of the field. I think those laps should be safe for a retirement from this part of qualifying. So a one and done for both Conrad Bohm and Tamas Kokeni here in Abu Dhabi. That's exactly what they would have wanted. Is anyone else on a push lap? Currently, it doesn't seem so. Everyone's going to just be coming into the pit lane. Actually, Thomas Lang starting a lap in the Williams. Currently on a 25.2. That was his intermediate lap time, as Marcel Patz has actually invalidated. I was going to quickly look at him. But Thomas Lang with a big slide out of turn 1. That's going to affect his momentum massively. Heading through turns 2, 3, and 4 as we head down the hill into the braking zone of turn 5. Where do you dare to brake? How late do you dare to brake into this corner? And he manages to pick that apex up nicely, get the drive out of the corner that he will need as he then drifts over to that middle of the road. He's got a little bit of traffic on his left-hand side. Kokeni is saying he's confident. He is ready to retire. Lamanen as well. I think that time will be safe. He's only 1,000 quicker, though, than Nando Moreira. So that battle for third in Q1 is a little bit spicy as we head out of turn 7 through turn 8 for Thomas Lang. Of course, this lap time is intermediate, so let's see how much he's up by in the middle sector, 1.4. This will put him around about the 1 minute 22 range. So here we go then for Thomas Lang, heading into the final few corners. Down into turn 12, late on the brakes. Make sure you don't lock up that inside front, and he doesn't. Through 13, a bit of a slide. Same through 14, that rear of the car not happy under power through some of these twistier corners. Through 15, late on the brakes into the final corner. Lang keeping it in play, keeping it in track limits. Where can he go? And he does go directly into the 1 minute 22 zeros, into 8th place. Nicely done from Thomas Lang. Of course, in this session, the drivers in 16th, 17th, and 18th will be eliminated. Currently in that drop zone are Sasha Need, last time out pole sitter Marcel Pabst, who's on a lap, and Lighty as well for TTM. So a lot of pressure on these 3 drivers' shoulders in this stage of qualifying. Can they bear the pressure and make the diamond of the lap with Pabst 1.7 up on his intermediate lap time?
Yeah, and you'd think from this point onwards, he's going to be able to hook it up and get a lap 1.7 seconds up. Not many risks need to be taken towards the end of this lap. If you can gain another couple of tenths on your intermediate lap, it'll be difficult as well to head through the final sector on intermediate tyres, but on softs, you've got so much more grip. You should be able to gain a lot of time. And Marcel Pabst, we saw that he was quick in qualifying last time out. He's going to be quick again, and it's going to be enough for the front row. 21.7 that puts him ahead of Conrad Bohm, who retires from the session. 5 of the top 6 have retired now. They think they have done enough to make it through to Q2. I'd certainly agree with them, but it is certainly quite close with quite a few of the drivers from about 4th to about 11th. There is 3 tenths in it, which is not much at all if you think about the fact that from 11th to 12th, it is also 3 tenths. So the tiny margins that these drivers can gain can guarantee them Q2, and quite a few of these drivers will be looking for those guarantees, but some of them will be looking for much larger gains, and so they will be taking much more risks. And well, we'll see if it pays off for the likes of those in the 22.4s and lower. Marcos Almeida, both the IRT drivers, both the ZNTs, and then Matthew Bassett and TTM Lighty, who's just come out on an outlap. He's not actually set a time at all so far in the session. So the McLaren, whose teammate has retired, he will be just waiting. He'll be hoping to set a pretty decent time, and we will see on board with TTM Lighty as he goes on his outlap. After that, it'll be followed by his real lap, and we'll see the real pace of the McLaren. See if he can avoid invalidation as Thomas Lang retires from the session. That is 7 of the top 9 now in retiring. The only ones not are ET8. And then, well, having a look at it actually, of those 7, 6 of them are on the same teams. You've got TF10, TES, and FVR. The only one that isn't of a team, or isn't a double retirement of a team, it is going to be it's Nando Moreira, and it's going to be TTM Lighty, who is going to want to become one of those retirements, as that was Marcel Pabst. He thinks he's done enough. Lindstrom is going to go for another one. Thomas Lang maybe taking a huge risk by going slower than the man in 8th place, and well, retiring from the session with Oliver Knott just 3/10 behind Lewis Jones, under a 10th as well. And all of these drivers pretty much capable of setting those times, on board with TTM Lighty. He heads through the first corner, big slide from the McLaren, and you'd think that this lap, with how close the grid is, this lap is not going to be enough for Q2. We will continue on board though to see if he continues to push, because he's not really likely to get enough time to prepare himself enough for one more push lap. So this is it for the McLaren. Power down the main straight, or down the back straight even. It's the main straight because it's the longest one. And then he'll have a heavy braking zone into the chicane. Indeed he does, braking it around where the 100-meter board would be and trying to turn it in. Braking maybe a little bit too late because he's not clipped any of those apexes. And then on the exit for the second DRS zone of the lap, just trying to put that power down, trying to go as quickly as possible essentially in this second sector. 53.6 is the time that he's set through there, and now the final sector beckons for Lighty. He's got so much ERS to burn. He might be actually preparing for that final run. Indeed he is. He's made it round in time, and he will be preparing for a final run, as are many of the drivers. They're all actually on final runs. So, well, the final times are about to be set, and for 9 of these drivers, for half of this grid, it's now or never.
It certainly is, and I think Lighty as well, trying to do this double push, might just run out of fuel when he gets to the line. So this is going to be squeaky bum time for the Papaya McLaren, for TTM. He needs to be having the lap of his life and hope the car doesn't run out of fuel as he's heading up to that start-finish line. Who is closest of these drivers to be finishing off their lap times? It's Joel Lindstrom. It's currently sitting in 8th place. Can he put himself just that little bit further up, give himself that buffer to the rest of the field behind? Heading through the final corner now, taking a lot of apex curb, more than we've seen other drivers do. He goes to 4th. That will be enough for Joel Lindstrom to get through to the next part of qualifying, and a big improvement found. Oliver Knott up by a 10th in the middle sector. So could Thomas Lang be a little bit too eager on that retirement? Lewis Jones up to 8th. That pushes the Williams down more. Oliver Knott up to 5th. These times are coming in thick and fast. Track improvement absolutely key. Sam up into 12th. Matthew Bassett's now on the cusp. All eyes turn to Lighty. He's up by 1.2 seconds in the middle sector on his previous lap time, but of course he backs off massively through this final couple of corners. So now Matthew Bassett, who scraped through in Portimao through Q1 in 15th place. All eyes turn to the McLaren, and he has run out of fuel. And for Lighty, it is disaster at the end. And for TTM, there's sheer heartbreak, as they thought they could get both cars through. Lighty with that mistake in the first lap, unfortunately costing him big time. And once again, Matthew Bassett can count himself one lucky boy. He's scraped through by the skin of his teeth. And for Matthew Bassett, he keeps that run going of being the lowest placed driver to advance through to the next part of qualifying. Watch him get 10th in Q2 at the death. Matthew Bassett, he is counting his lucky stars for the second week in a row.
He's using up all of ATX's luck, I think, because of the fact that he has done that consistently. Well, I mean, maybe that's why he doesn't have a teammate, so he can take advantage of that. Confirmation then of the grid. Tamas Kokani taking that pole position in Q1. Marcel Pabst just scraping out Conrad Bohm with Joel Lindstrom 500ths behind. Then it's Oliver Knott, Thomas Laminen, Nando Moreira, Lucas Beisner and Lewis Jones. Marnik in 10th. And Thomas Lang, who his retirement ended up being a fair one as he ended up in P11. Then Sam, Sasha Neeb, Marcus Almeida, and then, as we mentioned, Matthew Bassett in that P15 spot. The 3 that we're losing at the end of the first session: Adam Radek, Gregory Russell, and TTM Lighty. and that is going to be your state of affairs for Q1. We head now to Q2. The drivers will be prepared. They will be ready because they've had those laps on maybe on the intermediates, on the softs. Those who went for a third run will have had the most practice of all, and so will be the most ready to take to the Yas Marina circuit. And for a few of them, the likes of Conrad Bohm, Tamas Kukani, they've been sitting back, feet up on a deck chair in the middle of Abu Dhabi, just waiting for Q2 to start. They are now ready to get going again. So it's a clash of the preparation styles between those who retired early and those who went for a final run. I think Joel Lindstrom, he wasted a set of softs, if I'm perfectly honest, by going again in that final run. I'm not sure whether he used the same softs as he did before or different ones, but that lap time seemed to certainly indicate that he was on brand new ones. So maybe a risk that wasn't worth taking for Joel Lindstrom, but we will have to wait and see. Or maybe it was protection from a risk. The fact that he was only just above the 20, or only just above the 21s, he was in the 22s. It was a safety net that he cast, and that means that he's not going to have that safety net. Maybe if we have a late safety car in the race, he might have to strap on used softs. We'll have to wait and see. But the drivers now, most of them coming out, the only exceptions being the TES drivers, Sam Marnick and Matthew Bassett. Everybody else is on for a run, and it's the top 10 that will head through to the shootout in just 13 minutes time. But we've got 13 minutes of action to bring to you, and in those 13 minutes, 15 drivers will take to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix circuit in an attempt to set a time quicker than the TES drivers, let's be honest.
Yeah, they're the real benchmark at the minute, the TES drivers in all sessions, really. They're the ones you want to beat when it comes to these qualifying formats as it stands. But that whole thing about Lindstrom, I think it was just ETA were expecting a bit more of an improvement from the rest of the field. They're expecting the track evolution to be higher, of course. As more cars go around, the more track evolution you're going to get around this track, and the faster you'll go as there's more grip for that tyre to latch onto. So we are now into those first runs of Q2. Expect the lap times to be somewhat similar to what you saw at the end of the session. Thomas Lang is going to be the first driver to be setting a lap, of course. Retired quite early on in Q1 and was lucky to get through in the looks of things. But heading down into the chicane now of turns 6 and 7. Late on the brakes, a little bit wide from the turn 6 apex. That's going to affect his run through turn 7. DRS open for the Williams man. What will this middle sector hold for him? He does have an Alpine just behind him. That's of Marcos Olmedo just behind him in for the ABS team in the Alpine. But Thomas Lang, nicely done through turn 9. A little bit sketchy on throttle, but still the car holding and staying it, pointing the right direction. So as he now heads into turns 12, 13 and 14, we saw him struggle through 13 and 14 last time. It seems a lot more nice and a lot more precise from Thomas Lang. That car being very stable so far through those corners. Now into the final corner. Keep it within track them. It's easy to understeer wide. Across the line for Thomas Lang. The benchmark, a 22.7, 22.8 from Marcos Omeldo. I want to say these drivers are on a used set of soft tyres. Moreira now at the top of the times with a 22.3. Basner, 22.6. Nowhere near the fastest times we saw in Q1. So it definitely seems like used tyres for everybody who's out so far in the field, as Lindstrom goes up into second, Pabst into sixth. That's probably why the likes of Sam, Laminen, Bohm, Bassett, well, Bassett was in the pit lane, and Tamas Kokeni are all still in the pits because they're just not wanting to go out for that used set run and not get a delta on the board. But Marnock now coming up to the line. Can he get anywhere near Nando Moreira? And I would assume this is on another set of the used compounder tyres.
Yeah, the first run in Q2, you do probably want to use those used compounder tyre because it's just a banker to see, one, where your pace is at in comparison to the rest of the grid, and two, where you can be in terms of above those who maybe struggle to get at the likes of Lighty. And, well, if there's 5 of those, unlikely as it is, then you're guaranteed a place in Q3 just by setting a lap in its entirety. So for those like Marnik who are on a worn set of tyres, this is going to be, it's just a sighter. They're putting their feelers out to see what sort of times that they are comparing to. At the moment, Sasha Neeb, Oliver Knott and Lewis Jones and Marcel Pabst, they're going to be looking over their shoulders, especially Sasha Neeb, he's not had the pace. ZNT haven't had the pace so far this season, and that lap perfectly demonstrates that. And the fact that his teammate didn't even make it through to Q2 demonstrates that. But tonight that could change on its head as Marnik invalidates. He could become a lighty, or he could do a lighty even in not setting a lap. But we've got 9 minutes to go, so we'll see. And well, we've got Matthew Bassett, who's invalidated on his lap as well. I'll have a look at Sasha Neeb to see if he's on a push lap, but no, he's certainly not, because he's done a Hamilton into the chicane. So, of the drivers that have set laps so far, well, of the ones who haven't set laps so far even, Sam is the next one on his lap. Everybody who hasn't set a lap so far is at least on the circuit, even if they're on an in-lap from an invalid one, and Sam is going to be the first one to set a time, followed by the two TES drivers. No, followed by Tuomas Laminen first, and then the two TES drivers. So the three who set the early pace in Q1, they're out late in Q2 this time, and we'll have to see what their times are. At the moment, Sam, he's heading through the first sector, and he will be coming up to the second sector split time in just a little bit, and we'll see what time that he's going to be on. He's going to come up to it at the end of this. It's a corner. I'm not sure what it is, but he's got 52.53 out of it, and now he's got the tight, twisty, technical section of the final sector to really test his abilities, to see what Sam can do in comparison to some of these drivers. 123.5 is the lowest of the time so far. 122.3 is the highest, and the Kick Sauber is going to come around the final couple of corners. Sam is going to have to keep hold of it through the final one. Indeed, he does, and he's going to come up to the line. It's a decent lap. It's the best lap of all, actually. 122.1. I may have underestimated the abilities of the Kick Sauber, but he's now gone up into pole position. We've got quite a few drivers coming round on laps. Matthew Bassett, I think, maybe coming into the pits. He's 3 seconds off of Sam's pace in the second sector, unless he's hooked something up in the third sector, which I don't believe he has. He will be coming into the pits. Sasha Neeb, is he pushing on a lap? I'm not sure. I don't think so. So we're going to switch our attention. Well, we're going to switch our attention to one of the Aston Martins. Conrad Bohm, everybody. He's heading up to the second sector split time, and he's 52.0. So he is he's 5/10 faster than Sam in the second sector, which is ridiculous to say. But he's got one more sector to go, and this sector is really where you can gain proper time on a lap. And Conrad Bohm, he's going to come around the final couple of corners now, just trying to keep it in a straight line. Tuomas Laminen sets down a gauntlet with a 121.847. What can you do, Conrad Bohm, around the final corner? Little wobble on the exit, but it's enough for pole position. 121.413 is the time that he set. Switching over now to Tamas Kukani, who I think invalidated on his previous run. So the two TES drivers will not find themselves on the front row. Instead, it's Conrad Bohm and Tuomas Laminen.
Yeah, nicely done from Bohm to reply instantly to Laminen's statement. And for Kokeni, unfortunately, he just had a minor invalidation on his lap time. But there's no real rush, because, of course, we still have another attempt. And knowing Kokeni, he'll be able to get the lap time on the board that time around. Interesting to note is that if Marnik was able to set his lap, he still would be in second place in this session. And it does seem the likes of Bohm and Laminen were on some new compounder tyres, as we see Moreira now up into second place, followed by Baitner slotting into third. Who else is coming up to the line? I think that was Joel Lindstrom just starting a lap. Yes, it was. And then it's one of the Scarlet Red NLR Ferraris, and that is Oliver Knott in the Prancing Horse, heading through turn 14, using all the track he possibly can. That was very nice. Through that double left-hander of 13 and 14. Now into turn 16. Where can Oliver put himself? Of course, a very nice lap at the end of Q1. He goes up to fourth in Q2 of a 21.7. Very nicely done there from Oliver. Lewis Jones improves by 8 tenths to go to a 22.1. That could be on the cusp of elimination when we get to the end of this session. So we'll need an improvement as Marcel Pabst, last week's pole positioner, goes up into third, only 2 thousandths behind Nando Moreira. Pabst and Moreira at the minute cannot be separated by much. So that's something certainly to look out for if they get through to Q3, is that battle between the McLaren and the V-Carb. Who else is on a lap behind? Joel Lindstrom is in the middle sector, so as he exits out of turn 9, so, heading into turns 10, that little right-hander, 11 also this right-hander there, as you late on the brakes into 12. Easy to look up that right front as you head into the double left. 13, 14, run all the way out wide as close to that outside white line as you possibly can, and then into the final corner. Some traffic on the inside that might distract him ever so slightly. Lindstrom up to the line. Can he go near his teammate? Yes, he can. 1 minute 21.711 up to 5th place there for Lindstrom. That would put him in a good place for the rest of qualifying. But at the minute, the top 7 separated by 4 tenths, but from 2nd to 7th, it's only 2 tenths in it. So even though you're in the 1 minute 21s, like your Laminans, like your Oliver Knotts, you still could be on the cusp of elimination, and that is something these drivers need to look out for. As Marnik up to the line, where can he go? And he goes up to 6th. It just took a while to render there, but still, just look how close these drivers are to the drop. Konar Bohm, though, still going to go retire from the session. That lap certainly going to be safe.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone beats a 21.4, especially in Q2, I'll be incredibly surprised. And I'm sure that we'll see a few more retirements. Maybe they're more of a gamble than they would be because of how close this session is, with the cut-off point at the moment being, well, a 22.3 is Marcus Olmedo in P11's time. But we've got Bassett and Kokani to still set time. Sashani to set a proper time, as is Thomas Lang. And so times will tumble. I think maybe the 21.6 is a safe. Well, it depends on how large the gains are from the likes of Joel Lindstrom and Marnik in the final runs. 3 minutes left on the clock, and we'll see what happens. Matthew Bassett, he's on what's probably going to be his final competitive run, and we'll see what the Mercedes is capable of. We know what he's capable of. He's going to slot himself in like P7, and he'll be demoted to P10 at the end of this session. I can almost guarantee it, but I wouldn't be willing to bet money. 52.2 through the first 2 sectors. Not too bad, about a 10th off what he would have wanted, though, if he wanted to slot into the 21.7. So I think he's on track to get an incredibly high 21, maybe a low 22. So maybe my prediction is about to come true. We'll see as Matthew Bassett comes around the final couple of corners. The Mercedes is flashing in the rear. There's no more ERS. He doesn't need any more ERS. A slight slide out of the final corner, and yeah, it is going to be a low 22. I'm not sure that is going to be enough for the Mercedes driver, as we've got Tamas Kokani starting a lap. The Thomas Enger sim racing driver. Well, he didn't set a lap in his first push. In Q1, they were dominant. Nando Moreira has decided that Matthew Bassett's time isn't quick enough, or isn't quick enough to threaten, as does Marcel Pabst, as does Joel Lindstrom. So those in the 21.6s, 21.7s think they're safe. Marnik joins them, and we'll watch on board with Tamas Kokani as he sets his final push lap in Q2. The Aston Martin, he's going to come through the chicane. What sort of time is he going to get as we head up to the split? We will wait and see, as the second DRS zone is now for the Aston Martin. We'll see. We're looking for a 52.0 probably to see roughly realistically what he's going to get, and it is going to be, I believe, a 51 point something. It came up actually with his first sector time, which was a 17, which isn't incredibly helpful. But for the TES driver, we'll call it, because that's much easier to say, a little bit less of a handful. He's got one more sector to go to set his final times. He's going to want at least a 121.7 to be happy in this session. Exactly 1 minute left on the clock. That will tick down to the final seconds. And Tamas Kokani up to the line. 1 minute 21.4. And both Thomas Enger sim racing drivers are they're pretty much safe.
Yeah, they certainly are. And Matthew Bassett's luck has unfortunately come to an end, as Thomas Lang just knocks him out of qualifying. So we won't see another last-ditch effort end up with Matthew Bassett through. Almeida out of qualifying as well. He slots in 11th. Lewis Jones is just starting his final flying lap of qualifying. Who's closest round of the drivers at risk? It looks like it is going to be the Haas of Sasha Neeb, currently well off the pace to get through, into the next part of qualifying. But 7 tenths up in the middle sector is certainly what he needs, but he still needs to find an extra second. About an extra 8 tenths of a second, for Sasha Neeb. So he needs a monstrous final sector here, does the Haas man. Heading through turn 14. Can he at least get close enough to threaten getting out of this part of qualifying? Heading into the final corner now goes Sasha Neeb. This will knock out Thomas Lang, one of the FVR drivers, and just no! By 1,000th of a second, Thomas Lang stays in qualifying, but still Sam and Lewis Jones looking for improvements. All they need to find is a 10th and a half, and they're through to the next part of qualifying. So for Lewis Jones to knock Thomas Lang out, he's still on the cusp, is the FVR driver. NLR looking to get both drivers into Q3 across the line, and he does it. He knocks out Thomas Lang. Sam invalidates to the final corner. It would have just not been enough. That would have put him P11 if he did not invalidate, but Lewis Jones just scrapes through in his Scarlet Red Ferrari. NLR get both drivers through to Q2, and the drivers that set those 21s early on in the mid part of the session didn't need to go out again. So for maybe the likes of Laminen and Not, they have just somewhat wasted a set of the soft tyres, but they're better safe than sorry. They're through to the next part of qualifying, and unfortunately for Thomas Lang, Sasha Neeb, Almeida, Bassett and Sam, their sessions have come to an end, and especially for the Mercedes driver of Matthew Bassett, the luck of scraping through to every part of qualifying, that run has come to an end after three elimination risks. And that'll be disappointing for ATX, but still, a track like Abu Dhabi, easy to overtake. So the drivers that have just been knocked out, they can still make their way through the field to score some decent points in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, they'll have to work their way past teammates, though, as we've got Conrad Bowman, Tamas Kokani, 1 and 2, the 2 TAS drivers. Then it's Lucas Bison and Nando Moreira, Marcel Paps and Joel Lindstrom. Marnik, Thomas Laminen, Oliver Knott and Lewis Jones, the 2 NLR drivers, will round out who has qualified through to the final shootout of Q3. Then it's Thomas Lang and Sasha Neeb, who could barely be split by a hair. Marcus Almeida, Matthew Bassett and then Sam are the drivers eliminated. And so we are now down to 10, the final 10 in this session, and the quickest 10 in this session. And I think, to be fair, these are the right 10 to have. The only exception, I think, would be Thomas Lang. I think he deserves to be in Q3. Just wasted a set of tyres in Q1. And since then, he never really looked back. But now we've got, again, it's the same teams that are cropping up again. Thomas Enger Sim Racing, Conrad Bowman, Tamas Kokani. ET8 with Marcel Paps and Joel Lindstrom. TF10 with Thomas Laminen and Lucas Beisner, and then both NLR drivers as well. The only exceptions being Marnik for FVR and Nando Moreira for TTM, but it could have been oh so different had Lighty not invalidated on that final run. Had he not invalidated on the first run, there's so many things that could have gone differently, especially for TTM this evening, and we're only in qualifying. So we've got so much that could change across the course of the evening. Make sure to stick around for the rest of the action. We've got 11 minutes left in all of qualifying to decide who is going to take this pole position. Who is it going to be? Well, put your predictions down in the chat. I'm backing Conrad Bohm to take this. He's just been so incredibly quick. So, yeah, that's my prediction. That's my backing. I know it's a boring answer, but there we go. What's your opinion, Max?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to play devil's advocate somewhat slightly. I know it's not really devil's advocate, but I'm going to go for Tamas Kokeni. I'm going to go for the other TES driver. They just seem to be just those extra 1 to 2 tenths quicker than the rest of the field, just above the level that everybody else is showing. But we've seen surprises, of course, last week with Marcel Pabst. He wasn't really up there in those opening 2 stages of qualifying, and then when it got to Q3, switched that heat up to another level and ended up with the pole position after the disqualification, but still got the front row in the end. So you could look at the likes of Marcel Pabst, maybe even Moreira or Laminen to throw a fight into this one and maybe a curveball into this session. So they're drivers that really need to be looked out on here as well. Not just keep your attention on the Aston Martins. Look at the V-Carb of Marcel Pabst, who's now heading on his first lap at 17.3 in the first sector. About a tenth down to where he probably would have expected to be in that first few corners, as DRS is now open for the V-Carb. I wouldn't be surprised if he is on a used set of the soft compound tyres. A lot of these drivers that that weren't able to save some tyres will be on a used compound. So for Marcel Pabst, heading through turn 7, going very wide indeed. Somehow that's not invalidated his lap time as he exits out of turn 7 through turn 8. Now DRS open for the V-Carb and the late braking zone of turn 9. Brake just on the curb. If you go too far over, it will bog your car down. And for Marcel Pabst, I don't think this will be the most competitive of lap times, even if it wasn't on the used set of soft compounded tyres. I will assume Nando Moreira behind will instantly topple the lap. Nicely done through 13 and 14. Maybe a bit hesitant on the throttle from the V-Carb. He elects to come into the pit lane and not finish that lap. Moreira, though, will continue heading into the final corner. This will be the benchmark for Q3 for everybody to look out for pole position. Across the line, a 21.574. It wasn't on used tyres, but for Moreira, that is a really good statement to throw down. And then boom, instantly comes along, 21.323. The TES boys just seeming to be on absolute fire as it stands, as Kilkenny's about to start a lap. The next driver to come across the line will be Oliver Knott in the Ferrari. He's heading through the middle sector, but for Bohm, I just don't see that lap being beaten already. The only driver that could probably get close is Kilkenny.
There's barely words to describe the two TES boys at the moment, and bear in mind that Conrad Bohm actually didn't race last week out in Portugal. Oliver Knott struggling through the final sector. I'm not sure whether this will be a valid lap that he will continue with. If it is, then it won't be a very good one. It'll be along the lines of the one that Marcel Pabst did. Oliver Knott, he's going to continue, and I think there's a clear disparity between those who are on the worn tyres and those who were on the brand new ones. Actually, an entire second on the dot between Conrad Bohm and Oliver Knott. Interesting fact there. And then almost an entire second on the dot between Nando Moreira and Lewis Jones. Just an interesting quirk to point out there as we head through the final part of this qualifying session. I'm going to watch on board with Tamas Kilkenny. I believe he's the next driver across the line to set a time, because you've got the McLaren of Nando Moreira. Then you've got Conrad Bohm, who surely isn't on a lap, and then one of the Ferraris in the final sector. Tamas Kilkenny joins them in the final sector now, as do the two TF10 drivers. But Tamas Kilkenny, he will be looking at that 121.3 and seeing how easily he can beat that around the final corner. He's going to come, and what sort of time is he able to set up to the line? It's going to be a 21.3. It's a 21.381. It's not quite enough to beat his teammate Tomas Laminen, slotting his place in fourth, immediately displaced by his teammate Lucas Beisner, and Joel Lindstrom immediately displacing the two of them as he heads up into P4. Marnik will be the next one to set a time as he heads round to the second sector. Split time 52.0 is really what he's aiming for. He's got a 52.3, so his tyres are probably worn, which is why the lap seems a little bit subpar at the moment. 6 minutes left on the clock, and we've got a few of those drivers who are setting those worn times so they can come out and they can absolutely dominate with the brand new sets of soft compound tyres that they've saved up by doing said strategy, by using those worn soft compounded tyre. Marnik around the final corner. I'm expecting this to be 22 points something, 21.7. So maybe they are brand new tyres and maybe he's just hooked it up incredibly in that final sector. Or maybe it's one or the other for the FBR driver. But 6th place, just slotting himself in below Lucas Beisner and Thomas Laminen, splitting the two Red Bulls. And Marcel Pabst is now on a lap, seeing if he can beat his teammate Joel Lindstrom, currently in 4th place.
Yeah, that's certainly where he'll be aiming at the very least. Beat your teammate. That is the #1 rule when it comes to racing. Teammate is the most important one to beat. So out of turn 7, DRS open for the V-Carb. Got that a lot nicer than he did on his opening attempt. Of course, the only driver so far not to set a lap. 52.1 in that middle sector. That's very nice from Marcel Pabst. This could be on for a 0.5, maybe a 0.4. Of course, drivers can set their cars up very differently around this circuit. Do you go for straight line speed through the middle sector, or do you go for downforce for the first and final sector? This is where setup plays dividends in these qualifying sessions. Not so much in the race, but in qualifying, they are so key to get right. So Pabst up to the line, and it is a .4. Into third place goes the V-Carb. Of course, last time out was pole sitter, and still over a tenth behind Tamas Kokeli and Conrad Bohm. That just shows how quick their lap times really were. Moreira is just starting a lap now in his McLaren for TTM, but so is Conrad Bohm. So let's go on board with the Aston Martin to view one of what should be a sensational qualifying lap here in the final part of qualifying. Heading through turn 2 now. You then clip that inside curb. Ride as much of the curb as you can through turn 3. Get as close to the track limits as possible as you head down the hill. First sector up by 16 thousandths of a second. So shows, even though that time is so superb, there's still enough to find as he exits out of turn 5. A little bit slidey on the rear, but still a nice run. Heading down into 6 and 7. Down the hill, of course, you lose a lane on the right-hand side, so you do end up being on the outside. Braking as the curb changes down to third gear. Pick that power up ever so slightly. Let off back on the power as we now exit out of turn 7. DRS open for the Aston Martin. What is this middle sector split going to be looking like? Can we see him dive into the .2s, maybe even the .1s? He could see him dive into the .2s as he heads into turn 9. Up by half a tenth in the middle sector. This is looking like a lap that nobody could beat. This could be the perfect lap here from Conrad Bohm. Heading through turn 12, very nicely done. Just look how aggressive with the car. But through turn 13, runs that little bit too wide. The pressure got to him ever so slightly with the time that he was finding. And unfortunately, he invalidates as Moreira now heads up to second place. I did say look out for Nando Moreira. Curveball. And he certainly has. He's now into second place, but would he have enough time to get back into the pit lane and go again? But for Conrad Bohm, it looked like the .2 was on the cards. The nerves got to him. He went too aggressive into turn 13. He invalidates, but that lap up to then just looked absolutely pinpoint perfection. The car was doing everything he wanted. So it's a shame we couldn't see the rest of that lap. But drivers now heading out for their final runs. First of those drivers will be the TF10 driver of Lucas Baesner in the Red Bull. So let's see if he can at least make a stake for that second row of the grid.
Yeah, and I think Conrad Bohm would have had one eye on the timing sheets, and he pretty much invalidated as Nando Moreira came across the line to set a 121.3. So I don't think either TES drivers would have really felt a threat so far in this session. And, well, so far in the qualifying so far, Q1, Q2 or Q3 session. So I think Nando Moreira setting that time has really just, it's surprised the TES drivers. It's scared them slightly as Conrad Bohm comes out of the pits now. The final man to come out of the pits, apart from maybe Nando Moreira if he's able to go around with enough time. But with 1 minute 36 on the clock, I find it unlikely unless he can get an incredibly quick turnaround. And then even then, he'll be in traffic as everybody apart from himself is out, ready to push for a lap. Yeah, Nando Moreira even doesn't think he's going to be able to go any quicker in this session with a 21.362. He has set TTM's gauntlet down. He's on the front row provisionally. But with the way we've seen the track evolution run in Q1 and Q2, we should be expecting those times to be annihilated as Lucas Baesner comes around the final corner to start his lap. He is currently in 6th place, the lead TF10 driver with a 121.672. Minimal gains will see him climb above Joel Lindstrom as it stands, but obviously the ET8 driver can also set a lap time. These will be the last times of this session with 45 seconds left on the clock. It won't be enough time to get round and start again. So it really is now or never for all of these 9 drivers when Conrad Bohm come around the final corner that are on a push lap. And Lucas Baesner, well, he's going to be the first one to come across the line, and he'll be the first one to set a time. And he will be throwing down the gauntlet for TF10. He'll be throwing down a time that he'll be hoping cannot be beaten. Up to the second sector split time, he's improving, but it's not by enough. Just under a tenth is what the TF10 driver has taken out of his previous time. It'll jump above Lindstrom for now. But bear in mind that track evolution. He'll have been looking for more. The checkered flag is out, and Lucas Beisner, for him, the checkered flag is waved because he invalidates in that final sector, and he will not be improving on that 21.6. Switching to his teammate then, Laminen, who made his way through that corner, through that section, absolutely fine. He's only got 2 more corners to go, in fact, before he will come across the line and set his lap time across the final corner. It is a good lap. Thomas Laminen goes up into 7th place. It's good, but it's not good enough. Joel Lindstrom has improved again, not by enough to climb a position. Marnik, though, has, and so he will find his way into 4th place. Tamish Kokani won't be setting another lap, and we will be seeing what Conrad Bohm can do as he comes around the final corner. He doesn't need this lap because he's already taken this pole position with a 121.323, but he comes around the final corner anyway. He's looking to show off, and indeed he does. 121.3. He would have been looking for a 121.2, but he's managed to bang on 121.300, which is almost more impressive. But it's a Tez 1-3. Nando Moreira splitting the 2. And that is your grid for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Similar story to last time out in Portimao. We have one driver separating the 2 Thomas Eng boys, but hopefully this time around they've not made a mistake by putting in an eligible driver. But for Conrad Bohm, a brilliant pole position on debut here this season. So it's Bohm from Moreira is your front row, 62,000 separating that top 2. Kokeni and Marnik make up row 2, and that's only 88,000 separating the top 4, so still ever so close, even though we saw an absolute sublime lap from Conrad Bohm. Marcel Pabst in 5th, Joel Lindstrom 6th, Beisner 7th after that invalidation, Lewis Jones ending up in 8th, Laminen 9th, and then Oliver Knott in 10th. But we will have a lobby restart to turn the ghosting off and put the collisions on, so we have the slipstream back in the game. But interesting to see after that one. TES still the front runners here in TE qualifying. But once again here, Kaz, Kokeni looking like he's at least going to help lock out that front row. And again, when the pressure's on and that final lap, with no redos in qualifying, he qualifies 3rd and not able to get that lap time on the board.
Yeah, they appear to crumble under when they're faced with any sort of pressure. And the pressure that Nando Moreira put on them today just seemed to be too much because Conrad Bohm, we saw invalidate. Then Tamish Kokeni, he just wasn't able to set that lap that found himself on the front row. We know they're both capable of going quick enough to be on that front row, but it's just about having that bottle in that moment. And that's what Kokeni struggled to do. Moreira, though, he didn't actually set a lap in that final little bit of qualifying. He retired very early on in comparison to the rest of the field. So unlucky for Nando Moreira in the end, but I guess it's just it's when you come out of the pits. It's when you need to time everything right pretty much. And Moreira, he didn't quite time it right. I don't think he expected to be in the 121.3. In the end, only 4 drivers were, with Bohm, Moreira, Kokeni, and then Marnik slipping in with a 121.388 right at the end of that session. The top 4 split by under a 10th. It's incredibly close. Lindstrom and Beisner as well. It was Beisner and Jones split by under 100th. This grid is incredibly close. We saw in Q2 as well. I believe it was 11th and 12th, split by 1,000th. So it's all incredibly close.
Yeah, it really is. Like the gaps. I know we saw, as I said, I know we saw that brilliant lap time from Bohm, but it's still oh so close between that top 4. And I mean the field, especially in Q2, were covered by the top 10. Sorry, were covered by only about 0.4 of a second, and that is really close for 10 cars to be separated by that little in qualifying. So it just shows how close this field is, how evenly matched all these drivers are. And that threat of elimination can happen to anybody at any stage of qualifying. And it's going to be interesting heading into the race, of course, with the DRS, with the slipstream. Those games could be a bit more prominent, and that could maybe throw up a bit of action. Maybe someone on an alternate strategy. It's going to be like a peloton in this race, especially down that back straight. Drivers going to be pushing up the field at different moments. and we'll see drivers swapping places, dropping down, going back up. That is really what we're looking out for this evening. Penalties could play a part. Not going to be the biggest worry for these drivers, though, this evening, as those penalties, it was really more of a thing on the previous layout of the circuit, of course, revamped in 2021 to add those hairpins at turn 9 and at turn 5. But yeah, this really is going to be a very interesting race because, of course, we saw Thomas Eng take the pole position in 3rd place last time out in Portimao and weren't able to convert it at all. Once they got into the race, they fell away, they crumbled. Can they at least get on the podium here this evening? That's going to be a first. But for Bohm, it'll be about keeping that lead out of turn 1, through those first few corners and heading down that back straight. Moreira's first point of action of where he can really overtake is into turn 5. If he's able to throw a lunge in there, he's certainly going to pose himself as a big threat for the rest of the race. So if he's able to get ahead, he can control the pace, and that will cause a lot more pressure onto Bohm, onto Kokeni, and could we see TES maybe crumble away ever so slightly in the race again?
I mean, it would be an incredible story if Moreira was able to beat out either of the TES drivers to the win today. I mean, he is a former TES driver himself, and he's just returning to the esports. But I mean, we will see, because I mean, any of these drivers could spring a surprise. It's so close together that any of these drivers could spring a surprise, and yeah, it's going to be an incredibly exciting race, regardless of what happens. But, well, we've got one prediction in the chat going straight in with a TES 1-2. I mean, I think they've got the pace to be up there. They've certainly got the pace to be up there. But as Max said, it's about the race start, and it's about, can they hold on to that lead, and can they turn it into a 1-2 in the first section and in the first sector as well. We will see as it will all unfold.
There's only one flaw to that prediction. I don't know if that person was here at the start when I mentioned it, but of course, if you've just joined, even though TES are 1-3 in qualifying, one of them, as I say, I don't know what one, not been informed what one has been chosen, but one of those two drivers will have a 5-second time penalty looming over their head for the race. That was from a collision last week with a TF10 driver, and I think they got a second reprimand that ended up into that 5 seconds for the next race. So that means it is not all said and done for a 1-2 here for Thomas Eng. They will need an absolute masterclass of a performance from both drivers if they want to pull that one off. So, yeah, tricky times here for TES. Having that 5 second looming over your head, you know one of your drivers, of course they know who it is, will have that looming. You need to make sure you maybe favour them ever so slightly. And say if it is Kokeni, what really Bohm needs to do is, if Kokeni gets close enough, let him throw, back the field up, give him a buffer, and then you can start pushing once again. That is going to be all about strategy as well. Also the team game aspect, not just the individual driver results, but the team game. Not only from Thomas Eng, but from every other team as well. The teams in the best position really are the likes of your TF10s, your NLRs, with the drivers in those top 10s. So, yeah, it's all going to be about how they perform. And for TES, it just makes the challenge that ever bit more difficult with one of the drivers with a 5 second time penalty, meaning they could have an absolutely superb race and one of their drivers still ending up finishing outside the points.
Yeah, with 5 seconds, I mean, in your regular league race, 5 seconds would be nothing, but in this, it's huge. It's a huge gap because of how big, or how big the field is, with how little of a gap that we have between the drivers. It's going to be incredibly costly for Tamas Kokeni, who is confirmed to be the driver with that 5 second penalty, and so it is going to have to be a team game if TES are going to stick to Nelson Alves's prediction of a 1-2 in the chat. Get your predictions in the meantime. Just, you know, we can have a discussion about it. We can talk about it, because, well, we've got quite a few drivers who I think I think it wouldn't ultimately be a surprise if they do find themselves up there. I'm trying to find, in the meantime, I did download earlier the grid just to confirm some of the drivers that were missing, because obviously we only had 18 in that qualifying session. But yeah, I think we got an ET8 1-2 prediction in the chat from Joel Lindstrom, so he's confident in his own abilities there. But yeah, I think this race could go any way.
It certainly can. I mean, all it takes is one incident and this race gets flipped on its head. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers do take this one, because as I said, it is a team game, but you're still driving for yourself. You're still driving for your self-pride, and beating your teammate is the first part of doing that. So yeah, interesting to say the least. And for the drivers that didn't participate in qualifying, that could play a factor on their confidence. It could be a lot more. It could be difficult for them to work their way through the field. They don't know how much this track has improved over the course of that qualifying session. They don't have the understanding of being in that competitive setting just yet this evening. So they will need to somewhat dust off some cobwebs and get into that rhythm compared to all the other drivers who will be in that mindset. So that is another thing to look out for. But when you've got drivers like Moreira who have no teammate around them, because of course Lighty had that mistake in Q1, the drivers with no teammate, they can race for themselves. They don't have to worry about, oh, I've got to pull a certain gap to my teammate behind. I've got to look out for my teammate and try to fend for them. Moreira can go all guns blazing just for himself, try get the best result he possibly can for the team, and just have that all on his shoulders. So you've got to look out for the drivers like Moreira, Marnik as well. He was the only driver for FVR in Q3 as well. So there are also drivers that could be a serious threat these races this evening, especially Moreira for TES. He can just focus on his own race. He don't have to worry about extending an extra lap to help his teammate, boxing an extra lap, defending away opposition cars when they're on their outlaps from the hard tyre, say, or when they box off the mediums. He can just focus on his own race. Lighty can then just be in his ear saying, I'm in this position, I'm climbing my way through the field, so I can maybe catch up to you from the end of this race. But for Moreira, he really is in the driver's seat to really make an impact, because he's got no obligation to help his teammate. He's got no real need to help his teammate at this moment in time. And for Moreira, he could certainly try and snatch that lead, if not the opening lap, on that second lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think also keeping that DRS for Moreira will be crucial. You mentioned the second lap of the Grand Prix. That is when DRS is going to be enabled, and that is when Moreira really needs to be in it with both the TES drivers. If, though, they are both able to get a good start burst away from Nando Moreira, then, yeah, from there, both the TES drivers will be able to they'll be able to build that gap. They'll be able to run the race how they like. And if that involves Tamas Kokani just blasting off into the distance and Conrad Bohm just trying to hold everybody off, then so be it. And we'll get an exciting battle for P2 along the likes of 2021, when Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton, when they were fighting for that P2 spot behind Max Verstappen. Obviously, we know what happened in 2021. That's not going to happen tonight because it's only round 2 of the season. Keep an eye out for the rest of the season. Keep an eye out for that season finale, because you never know. We could have something along those lines. And I mean, now may be an appropriate time to talk about said calendar. I haven't got the graphic in my OBS actually, so I would just walk you through it. So round 2, we're in Abu Dhabi. We head next week to China for the Shanghai International Circuit. After that, it's Kota and Qatar will round it off for the year. We'll start again in January with the British Grand Prix, then Japan, Mexico, Austria and Brazil. So maybe less 2021, maybe more 2007, but we're nowhere, or 2008 even. We're not anywhere near that yet, because that is, well, that's in February, and currently we're in November. So it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a good season, especially if we get drivers like Bohm, drivers like Kokeni, drivers like Moreira setting incredible laps and incredible times, I think we've got a quality grid with some of the best esports teams in the world putting out some of the best drivers in the world, and well, we're only going to head up as the stakes rise for the teams over the remainder of the season. That's if that's if Thomas Enger Sim Racing don't run away with it, but they finished off the podium last time out, so anything can really happen. A double podium from ET8. Bogdan Moldovan taking second ahead of Marcel Paps. Moldovan is not racing tonight. He has been replaced by... He's been replaced... Oh, who has he been replaced by? But he's been...
Lindstrom.
He's been replaced by... Yes. He's been replaced tonight. So, yeah, we could have a new driver come up to the fore. And having that change of teams around, having those drivers change week in, week out, it doesn't help one with the momentum. But then you can have a reverse effect. Drivers don't know how, for example, Nando Moreira is going to fare in wheel-to-wheel action. He's not raced in about a month. They don't know how he's going to fare in wheel-to-wheel action, so it can really throw something unknown into the mindset of the drivers. And the TES drivers will both be thinking, how does Nando drive? They'll be trying to feel it out, and maybe they'll give him the lead early on. We'll have to wait and see, but at the moment we're waiting and seeing to get into the session in the first place. But we should be in very, very soon to bring you an incredible evening of action around the Yas Marina circuit. The Yas Marina circuit, we'll talk about it. I'll bring up the track map as I already have it ready and waiting. It is a just above 5 kilometers, 16 turns with the main areas for overtaking being at the end of that first DRS zone and the end of the second one. That first chicane, it will be difficult to go through for the drivers if they're going to try to make an overtake, but a huge risk. We'll see a huge reward as they will be able to get through with track position and the DRS as they head down to turn number 9. So, yeah, these drivers, the overtakes will likely be made in turns number 7 and turns number 9. And, well, if a move's made anywhere else, even better, because then we get some exciting on-track action. I'm sure we'll get loads of exciting on-track action this evening. TTM, for the one who's asking in chat, TTM, they had Nando Moreira in second, and TTM Lighty qualified in last. So not necessarily a great qualifying session overall, but a good one for Nando Moreira. Yeah, Lighty, you mentioned earlier on that he was going to have to fight forward. He's certainly going to have to fight his way forward if he wants to get up with this grid being so incredibly close. I think he's going to struggle because everyone will be so tight. He'll struggle to get his car in there in the first place, but I could be proven wrong. So you never know.
Yeah, you really don't. It's going to be difficult for Lighty to make his way through, to say the least, especially with the DRS train. But let me quickly run you through your standings. It's FVR on top, joint top with ETA on 46, TF10 and then ZNT both on 18, they're third and fourth. TTM fifth with 14 points. ATX with in sixth with 12. Thomas Eng and ABS joint 7 with 6 points. And then NLR 9th and IRT in 10th. I think I've done that just before the race start. Yes, I have. Of course, for some reason my game is no longer windowed. I need to fix that after this evening, so I couldn't see if we were getting underway. But those are your standings. So whoever scores more points between FVR and ET8 will take the lead of the championship. But with that, it just shows how much of a gap they have over the rest of the field. And we've only done one round. They're on 42 points. Sorry, the closest team to them is only on 18. So that just shows how close it really is. But we're about to get underway here. Under the lights in Abu Dhabi, we've got 5 red lights. And we are racing here in Abu Dhabi. It's a good start from Conrad Bohm. He covers off Nando Moreira instantly, but Kenny with a lightning start off the line. Not only past Moreira, but also battling with his teammate. A big slide, though, out of turn 1. That's going to bog his momentum all the way down through turns 3 and 4. Marnik now going to the outside line, not able to pull that off into turn 3. Late on the brakes as we head up into turn 5. Contact between Kenny and Moreira. This now allows Marnik to go for a move to the inside line. He's able to get that run out to the corner. Kenny went onto the mediums. That's why he got such an electric start off the start finish line. But here we are then, heading down into the 6 and 7 chicane. Kenny defending from Marnik. 2 by 2 further back. You can see the 2 ET8 drivers of Paps and Lindstrom fighting with Lucas Basner as we exit out of turn 7 for the first time in this Grand Prix. A hectic getaway from these drivers. Kenny, 40 got the jump that he wanted, weren't able to do so as Thomas Lang and Tumas Lamanen now going side by side as we head into turn 9. The Williams on the outside trying to hold it with that medium compounded tyres. He would have more purchase through this opening stage of the race. Lindstrom versus Lucas Basner, the ET8 driver versus the TF10 driver. We got VCARB followed by Red Bull, VCARB followed by Red Bull on this opening lap. But for Conrad Bohm, nearly breaking a second, both of the TES drivers going for the mediums. That is a strategy gamble from them. There's a yellow flag. That's for Lewis Jones falling through the field. But a hectic opening lap. But Bohm breaking that DRS early. But crucially, he's on the alternate strategy. So this now allows Kenny to really set Moreira in his sights. But he's still got to look out for Marnik behind.
A hectic opening lap. I would have loved to see Max, but I was not actually invited to the session in the first place. So if you could get on that, then that would be greatly appreciated. But we very much enjoyed your commentary over the first lap, and I'm sure we'll get a replay from somebody's point of view at some point. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the action is as we head into it. But I mean, it's thank you very much, Max, for the invite. We will try to get the action to you as soon as I possibly can, and then you can actually see what we're talking about as we head into it. So Max about to start steering. You can't see this. I see this every week. Max does steer. He does join in the session. He may as well race. So, but yeah, lap 2 now of 29. We are now loading into the session, and I'll be able to bring you the action very shortly. Apologies for that. Max was cooking. He was. I didn't want to interrupt the flow, to be fair, but yeah, good commentary. Unfortunately, we couldn't see it. But yeah, we're just waiting to get into the lobby now. I am loading in, and so I'll give you that. As much as you like our faces, you want to see them no longer, as we'll get to see the action. And well, the action is certainly underway with both TES drivers first and second. Nano Moreira in third, and Joel Lindstrom dropping down to 7th in the meantime. But yeah, L'Oliveira able to join the session in the meantime, although he's 3 seconds off the pace. So we do have 19 of our 20 drivers on this grid, but the TES drivers playing the start absolutely perfectly. They find themselves 1 and 2, and this is exactly the start they would have wanted.
It certainly is. I'm terribly sorry about that, everybody. I thought Cookcats was in the session. If I knew that, I would have given him an invite earlier. So apologies for that. At least I know a career in radio commentary isn't that far out the window. But here comes Kenny on his teammate Conrad Bohm, and we get to see the 2 TES drivers swapping places. And do we now see Bohm elect to back up the rest of the field and try and keep Kenny around about a 5-second window to everybody else behind? That will be interesting to see, but unfortunately, but we'll have to wait for the next few laps. It doesn't seem so as we head through the final sector, so we do seem like the TES drivers are just going to race this one like a normal race, see what happens, because they could still break away on that medium compounded tyres. Moreira has done well to stick with Kenny, and now sticking with Bohm, heading out of the final corner and into turn 1. So medium runners are the 2 TES boys of Kenny and Bohm, Oliver Knott, Thomas Lang, Almeida, Bassett, Jones and Vieira. Everybody else on the hards is Lucas Basner now under pressure from Joel Lindstrom behind. Of course, Red Bull and VCARB, sister teams in real life. Of course, not with TF10 and ET8. They are fierce rivals as they are. As here comes Conrad Bohm to the outside line, of Tamas Kokeni. He gets the move done nicely, and there's Marcel Paps getting past Marnik. This is a real move being made. That's not an organised switch between teammates. So there goes Marnik dropping down into 5th place, and Marcel Paps up into 4th. And we'll see, will the TES boys swap once again? But no, they go 2x2 to defend from Moreira behind. But that hard tyre to medium strategy could be the quickest at the end of this race. So have TES shot themselves in the foot if they can't break away over the next few laps.
Yeah, and it's that breakaway that's going to be absolutely vital in terms of the rest of this race. But that DRS is going to reel them back, and I think it was a gamble taken to go on those mediums in the first place. I think it wasn't even a gamble in their minds. I think they thought that everybody else would have been on those mediums switching to the hards at the end. Alas, they were not, as the switch was made. But at the end of lap 5 of this Grand Prix, Conrad Bohm and Tamas Kokeni unable to break that DRS on Nando Moreira in 3rd place. And so it's going to be difficult for TES at this point. Those mediums, they've seen better days. And for those hards, they're going to start firing up. Nando Moreira getting incredibly close to the back of Tamas Kokeni as they head into the hairpin. Out of it, though, Kokeni will probably make that move on his teammate for the lead. A move being made in the meantime for Oliver Knott on Sasha Neeb. A little bit of contact made as they headed out of the chicane. But looking back at them, it's going to be 3 wide into the chicane as Nando Moreira takes the lead of the race. Tamas Kokeni backs out. And Conrad Bohm takes that 2nd place. Marnik, in the meantime, getting past Marcel Paps. Although he's getting passed by Marcel Paps now and Lucas Beisner as they are fighting. And it's 3 wide once again for the lead of this race. Tamas Kokeni takes it this time ahead of Conrad Bohm, who's done an incredible job of warding off Nando Moreira. Looking further back, Marcel Pabst and Lucas Beisner have seen off Marnik. But these fights at the top of this field, they've only just begun, and there's no chance they're going to stop anytime soon. Fights further back as well between Oliver Knott and Matthew Bassett as they're side by side through the 3rd set. So Oliver Knott taking that P11 back, I believe, from the Mercedes. But Tamas Kokeni and Conrad Bohm, they need to break away, and they're nowhere near that at the moment.
Yeah, they really aren't, and that's, I think that was Thomas Lannonen making a mistake out of the final corner. That's allowed Lindstrom through, but he's got a bit wide, has the V-carb through turn 1. This could allow the Red Bull to get a run, but they still got to look out for Thomas Lang behind, who's made some moves off these opening few laps. Qualified in 11th, of course, now up to 9th place for the Williams driver. But let's look at that battle at the front once again. We saw 3 wide into turn 1 last time round. We could maybe see 4 because Marcel Paps is now looking to join the party. We're getting closer and closer, heading into turn 6, and Bone go to back out of it. Moreira nearly into the back of the Aston Martin in front of him. Light, he picks up a 3-second time penalty. He's had a dream getaway up into 12th place so far. Is the McLaren, but heading down into turn 9 once again. There goes Bohm to the outside of Kokeni. Moreira won't get close enough, so let's have a look at the moves further back. Marcus Olmedo falling all the way down to 16th place. Moreira still did go for a move on Kokeni. That must have been a really late lunge from the McLaren. I wasn't expecting him to get by. That's why I clicked away, but he has been able to split the 2 Aston Martins once again. And for Thomas Eng, it's the same story as qualifying. Moreira in between the pair of them. Of course, those hard tyres will be the better to compound within the next few laps. Because, of course, tyre wear very high around a circuit like this, especially with the nature of the long corners that we do have through the likes of 13, 14, 9 and 5. That's really where those tyres do get beaten up quite aggressively, especially on that right-hand side. So here we are then, heading through turns 3 and now down through 4. Could we see Conrad Bohm come under pressure from somebody else? And here comes Marcel Paps to the outside of Kokeni. There's contact made. There's a yellow flag. Matthew Bassett's crashed out of the session. I don't know if they'll pick up a safety car. It doesn't look so, actually. I think it might have been an on-track retirement. Here comes Moreira on Conrad Bohm. Have Thomas saying, gone for this gamble, gone for this medium tyre play. It's not looking like it's worked in their favour as here comes Marcel Paps to the outside line of the Aston Martin. Can he pull this one off? Of course, last time out was pole sitter, finished 3rd as well in Portimao. It's side by side still between Kokeni and Paps as we're heading into turn 9. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Is Paps going to be daring enough to hold this one around the outside, nearly into the back of Bohm, and unfortunately having to concede the place, but he's still got the run out of the corner as he's gone for the switcheroo through turn 9. But look, Bohm's just going to try box him in. He's actually ended up boxing in Kokeni at this point round the outside outside through turn 12. The inside for 13. Contact made between Pabst and Kilkenny. Brilliant racing between the pair of them, though, as Pabst able to work his way by. This medium tyre not working Thomas Eng's way, and they're starting to maybe show a few cracks in the system, as there goes Pabst up into third place. Next on his list is Bohm, who is dropping time to Nando Moreira in front.
Yeah, those mediums really not working, and maybe they think about a switch in the next couple of laps, a huge undercut from those mediums onto those hard compounded tyres, and making them last for, 3/4 of the race, because these mediums are really not working. As you mentioned, they're struggling to even stay in the DRS. Conrad Bohm dropping 7/10 to Nano Moreira on that last lap. Tamas Kokeni a little bit closer to Marcel Pabst, and Joel Lindstrom even closer to Marnik, but not making that move. Sasha Neeb, though, and Thomas Lang, they're side by side as they head into the chicane. But Sasha Neeb coming out on top in that one. Thomas Lang, another driver struggling on those mediums. Quite a few, actually, struggling on the mediums, with only three in the top 10. Thomas Lang being the third one in that 10th place, with a 2.3 seconds back to TTM Lighty in P11, who, as you mentioned, had the dream start. He hasn't really capitalised on it, but it's those hard compounds of tyre that's made the difference. And Tamas Kokeni making another maybe slight mistake, with Marcel Pabst picking up a 3-second time penalty. That's a huge mistake for the RB. That will almost see him level pegging with Tamas Kokeni, off track at least now, as they head onto lap number 9 of this race. Because remember, Tamas Kokeni, 5 seconds worth of penalties are going to be applied to his time at the end of this race for contact in Portugal. So not going the Aston Martin's way at this time in the race. But those hards are really working for so many of these drivers. Although, having said that, Conrad Bohm has gained 3/10 on that last lap on Moreira. It's because of that DRS that he's been able to keep, but Moreira with a wobble on the exit means that Bohm will be able to reel him back in, and this may be a switch for the lead of the race once again, which means it'll put the TES drivers in control of this race. Nando Moreira's not going to give it up that easily, but there's not much that he can do to ward off the Aston Martin, and Conrad Bohm will lead into and out of the chicane. DRS is available, though, for Nando Moreira, who looks to the outside line, and the McLaren is going to retake the lead of this race. But this battle it's barely started, let alone it's reaching its boiling point.
Yeah, it really is starting to heat up here under the lights in the desert. We'll see if anyone's going to get close enough for a move on lap 10 of 29. Already nearly 10 laps into this Grand Prix. It's absolutely flown by these opening few stages of the race. And the hard tyres really are going to be the ones you want to be on within, I would say, the next 2 laps. And there goes Tamas Kokeni into the pit lane. So we do see a pull of the trigger from one of the TES drivers, and it is Kokeni into the pits, followed by Thomas Lang. Those hard tyres will make it to the end of the race. 19 laps will not be an issue for them. They will hit the cliff ever so slightly at the end, but they will be able to not be in puncture territory. Lindstrom all under pressure from Thomas Lanneman heading into turn 5. The V-Carb just staying within DRS range of Marnik in front. But let's move to the front of the field once more. DRS open for Marcel Pabst, for Conrad Bohm, as we now head into the 6 and 7 chicane. Lamanon is able to draw side by side with Lindstrom, able to get past Lindstrom, and here comes Sasha Neeb following him through. Brilliantly done from the Haas. Very opportunistic indeed to get up into 7th place and drop Joel Lindstrom down to 8th. Delightful one V-Carb so far for ETA. The other one starting to struggle ever so slightly as Bohm looking to the outside line of Moreira. Nothing doing there. So the Aston Martin still having to sit behind the McLaren once more as Sam and Adam going side by side. These are the 2 IRT boys fighting this one. Of course, IRT only have 1 point so far this season. Points go all the way down to 15th, I think, here in TE. And for IRT, this will be a big points haul for them. So the top 5 starting to break away as now Conrad Bohm into the pit lane. Those medium tyres did not work, and I think this strategy gamble will not work in the favour here for TES. And I think it's going to be a similar story to last week, a 1-3 ending up with a disappointing result here in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, they've got the pace. They just need the strategies. And as somebody mentioned that they might do in the chat earlier, they Ferrari'd themselves down to the rear of the field. We'll see where they're able to fight their way back up to, because the undercut is obviously strong on this game. It's just how strong are they able to make it with the pace that they have. We know they've got incredible pace, and they're 3.1 seconds off of Gregory Russell in P11 at the moment. They're still within DRS of each other, so Kokeni gaining a little bit with that undercut by that lap, but not by too much. Looking at further up, though, the battle for the provisional race lead as it stands. Probably the main race lead, and it's Nando Moreira leading. Marcel Pabst in second. Lucas Beisner in third, with Marnik in fourth. And now Sasha Neeb, who's made that overtake on Thomas Laminen into P5. Laminen still trying to stick a wheel in there, but he's not able to hold it. Adam Radek and Sam still fighting. Sam on the inside line. Adam Radek on the outside, and Sam backing out because the two teammates are going to need to... well, they're going to want to gain up the field. They're 3.4 seconds off Adam Lighty, Adam Radek is 3.4 seconds off of Lighty at the moment. So they're going to want to gain as much time as they can. But, well, these four are split by basically nothing. Lap 12 of this Grand Prix, still holding that DRS, and Sasha Neeb 1.6 seconds back. He could be closing. That will bring 3 more drivers into the contention. And, well, for especially the ZNT driver of Sasha Neeb, nothing to lose when they're brought into the fight, because there's the ET8 driver has a teammate, the TF10 driver has a teammate, and well, Marnik, he's already there. But yeah, it's going to get closer, and the DRS is the only thing that's going to stop this now. They're going to get closer through the final sector, and then partially through the first sector. We'll see how close they get as they've started fighting again. Thomas Laminen getting past Sasha Neeb with that DRS that I just mentioned a second ago. He'll get the DRS, will Neeb, but so will Marcel Pabst, who's going to bring himself to the outside line and take the lead of the race off of Nando Moreira, as both the TES drivers find their way past Gregory Russell, who looks to fight back, I think. And we couldn't quite see because of the camera angle, but Tamas Kokeni, his race has just gotten a lot worse, because contact between himself and Gregory Russell sees them drop 3 seconds to Thomas Lang.
Russell trying to, for some reason, fight Bohm and Kokeni. Bohm was able to get by into turn 5, and then Kokeni was able to get past with the DRS. It then went to partially 3 wide in a sense, because, of course, the way the corner goes. Gregory Russell, too late on the brakes. Kokeni all the way on the outside of the circuit. Straight T-bone into the side of the Aston Martin, spinning Kokeni round. And unfortunately, that's ruined any chance of Kokeni winning this race, you would think, because he has just unfortunately been taken out by someone he wasn't even fighting in this Grand Prix. Thomas Lang is now by him, and they are battling for position, so Thomas does deserve to battle for this race at least podium at the moment. But for Gregory Russell, that was just unnecessary fighting from the man nowhere near the front of the field. I think it was just a bit too aggressive, seeing drivers that may be further back and he may not get an opportunity to fight with again, and just got a little bit too aggressive with it. And unfortunately for Kokeni, has been spun around. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a post-race penalty for Gregory Russell. Murray were able to get past Pabst. Neeb able to get past Laminen, and then Sam and Adam swapping once again. The two Kick Saubers working together ever so nicely for IRT, but they are 4.5 seconds off the back of the TTM McLaren of Lighty, as Thomas Lang now straight back past Kokeni. That is over a racing position, currently down in 12th, but this will probably be about P2, P3 by the time they come out into the traffic of the drivers switching onto the mediums. I expect them to do so within the next 3 or 4 laps. The drivers up at the front of the field to go onto a set of the medium compound tyres, but disaster there for Tamas Kokeni. Just unfortunate that Gregory Russell got in his way, but now up at the front, Pabst and Moreira really are working together nicely, and Basler and Marnik, they're just sort of sitting behind, waiting for those final few laps. As that's Russell making a mistake again, this time spinning out of the final corner, but there goes Pabst to the inside of Moreira, and once again, another lovely switch between that top 2.
Somebody in chat mentioned it, but as Joel Lindstrom goes to the inside of Sasha Neeb, just trying to make that move, but Neeb just has the line. Somebody mentioned in chat that Gregory Russell may have been defending for Sasha Neeb with not much for him to fight for personally. He could have just been trying to hold off the TES drivers for his teammate, as Sasha Neeb at that time was catching up to the top 4, 1.7 seconds between them. It is now 3.6 Lucas Laminen and Sasha Neeb have began to fight and have, over the last couple of laps, been scrapping away for that position, not only through the DRS, but they've had to seal it in the corners, which has lost them oodles of time. And so they are pretty much fighting now for that P5. But at the moment, the battle for the lead rages on. Marcel Paps with a 3-second time penalty, and Nando Moreira are the ones switching between, with Lucas Beisner and Marnik likely to be the ones in contention just behind. Surely they've been preparing, and they've been saving everything just to try and maybe cause a little bit of upset right at the end for Paps and Moreira, as Lewis Jones picks up a 3-second time penalty. He finds himself in P16 at the moment. But all of the top 10 and Gregory Russell haven't pitted yet. Everybody else has. So this is where the strategy plays into it. We saw drivers come in as early as lap 11. So that likely means that these mediums can do 18 laps. And, well, that means that in the next few laps we will see these hard runners come into the pits, switch onto the medium compounded tyre, and be incredibly quick in comparison to those on the hards. Because starting on the mediums, you won't feel the advantage that you have until it's too late. As Tamas Kokani, with a beautiful switchback move, if he's able to pull this off. What a move on Thomas Lang. A switchback in the turn 7-8 chicane. And he may not have many highlights to come out of this race this evening, but that is certainly one of them.
Brilliantly done there from Kokeni to get that up and under on the exit of turn 7. And that just shows, even though he may have had his fair share of bad luck in this Grand Prix, he's still fighting on. Sasha Neeb now into the pit lane. So we'll see where Sasha comes out in relation to the likes of Lang, Kokeni and Bohm. So the Haas driver trundling ever so slowly. Of course, the last pit box on the grid. Onto the medium compounded tyres he will go, and Sasha Neeb will leave the pit lane, of course, after the little lag that the game gives as he heads underneath the tunnel. And it is quite a margin between Sasha Neeb and Thomas Lang. So what is this gap going to be once they head up to speed? There's a yellow flag in the final sector, and that is for Gregory Russell. The gap between Neeb and Lang, 6.3 seconds. That is a huge buffer, but towards Conrad Bohm, that's an extra 3 seconds. So it's 9 seconds between Bohm and Sasha Neeb. So if you look at that in relation to the likes of Moreira Pabst, it'll be about 8 seconds between the race leader of Bohm and the likes of the medium runners of Pabst, Moreira and Lucas Beisner. So still a big margin for them to try and hunt down. They can't afford to fight in those early stages of the medium. Has to all the way to the final few laps once they get close enough. But we may have said that TES have maybe Ferrari'd themselves, but that difference in lap time and difference in time could be absolutely crucial, because the later these guys leave it, the less laps they can gain, and overall it makes it a more tricky challenge.
Yeah, and there's a lot of time that they're going to have to gain. Obviously, Sasha Neeb 6 seconds off of Thomas Lang, and a further 9 seconds off Conrad Bohm. But they don't want to fight in that early medium stint. Thomas Laminen and Lighty coming in for that medium stint. Conrad Bohm is stuck at the moment behind Sam and Adam Radek, the two Kick Saubers, the two IRT drivers, providing a roadblock for Bohm. He's not lost too much time, 2/10, and he's able to get it back down the straight as the DRS was available. And so he's burst away once again, and he's built up actually 3/10 on that straight on Lang and Kokani, as Lang makes his way past the Tez teammate. But Bohm up to P6 now, and it's looking promising for the Aston Martin. Less so for Tamas Kokani, but it's still looking pretty decent for him as he gets back past Thomas Lang, because of the fact that the overcut just really hasn't seemed to work. The fact that we thought that the mediums would bring such an advantage at the end, having watched that first stint, I don't think it's going to bring that much of an advantage, because I don't think they're that quick. As the top four all dive into the pit lane, this is the crucial time in this race. Who is going to be out in the lead? I think it's going to be Conrad Bohm, but by how much? Joel Lindstrom, Nando Moreira, Joel Lindstrom continues even. His teammate Marcel Paps, Nando Moreira, And Lucas Beisner and Marnik all into the pits. Conrad Bohm is going to lead, but remember, they go under the hill and come back out of it, well, in the first sector, essentially. They're going to come out behind Kokani and Lang, and it's not by as much of a difference as it is to Sashani. Just 2.3 seconds between the hard runners and the mediums. And so this strategy actually could have been played perfectly by these top four. Sashani less so, and Marnik, well, he's dropped by 1.7 seconds, and he's now behind Sashani actually, as Marcel Paps takes the lead of this group. Marnik makes his way past Sashani, and he'll be hoping to drop that 2-second gap sharpish. But Nando Moreira, Marcel Paps, and Lucas Beisner, this race has suddenly looks incredible.
It really does, and look how much they're gaining. Even though they're playing a bit of the DRS games, the swapping of places, they're still finding an abundance of time on those cold medium tyres to the cars in front. I did see that Sashani, when he was on this strategy, when he first came out to Thomas Lang, he gained about a second on that opening lap to the Williams in front. And just look how much time they really are finding behind the Williams now. They're going to be within DRS range by the end of this lap as Joel Lindstrom comes into the pit lane, and so does Thomas Lang. Bohm now just going across the start-finish line and into turn 1. That gap is going to be around about 5 seconds between the medium runners and Conrad Bohm. So if I quickly bring up the gap to leader, it is 5 seconds exactly. So that could certainly be reeled in over time, just due to the grip difference that they do have. Look at that, it's 6/10. Since they come out the pit lane, they have gained about 1.5 seconds on those hard runners. That just shows how much purchase those medium tyres really do have, how much of a grip difference there really is at this stage of the Grand Prix. Here comes Nando Moreira then, on his first victim, Thomas Lang to the inside line. Is he be able to pull this one off late on the break? Surely Lang will not fight this one too aggressively, doesn't want to lose too much time, and there we go, round the outside, Marcel Paps now going to try and get past Thomas Lang. We'll see these hard runners starting to fall through the field like a stone through water, as there goes Paps. Here comes Lucas Beisner as well around the outside. There goes the V-Carb of Marcel Paps up into 4th place. This battle for the race win still on between Paps and Moreira. You can't count out Lucas Beisner even nearly into the back of Paps. Really aggressive round the outside there for Thomas Lang for Lucas Beisner. But look at this, the team game now coming into effect. Tamas Kokeni holding up Nando Moreira and the rest of the medium runners to benefit his teammate Conrad Bohm through this final sector, and maybe even into turn 1 as well. He's going to just break a little bit earlier, wait to pick that power up. This is brilliant team play from Thomas Eng Sim. This is going to make it an incredible challenge for these median runners to catch up to Conrad Bohm. We're on lap 20 of 29. Moreira now looking for the outside, but this might open the door for Marcel Paps. Lang fighting back against Lucas Beisner here into turn 5. DRS will be open for Moreira. He'll be able to get past Kokeni. That's one car behind in front of the Aston Martin. Here comes the other. Here comes 3 wide, sorry. Here comes the pair of them of Beisner and Paps into turn 6 and 7. Contact between the V-Carb and the Red Bull. Beisner nearly up and over. He was on 2 wheels through turn 6, but they're able to get by the Aston Martin as well. So now the prey is now Conrad Bohm in front of him. That gap, 4.4 seconds between Bohm and Moreira. Let's see how quickly these guys chase in their prey. The Predators now being those medium runners. It was the other way around in the first stint. This time around, the hunter becomes the hunted.
Yeah, and Nando Moreira able to cut that gap that Tamas Kokeni, to be fair to him, worked all the way up to 5.1 seconds. It's now just under 4 seconds as they end the lap, and I'm expecting fastest lap to come in because of the fact that they had that DRS. Maybe not, because Laminen did it in clear air. I believe he's the one holding the fastest lap at the moment, but 3.8 seconds between Moreira and Bohm. The time is now ticking down. Lap 21 of 29 in this Grand Prix. And it's yet to be seen whether the TTM and the ET8 and the TF10 drivers are all able to close in on the TES driver. Tamas Kokeni has dropped DRS on the last lap to Beisner, and I'm sure Marnik is going to look to get past on this lap. Indeed, he is, and Thomas Lang might follow through as well, even though he's on those harder compounded tyre as Marcel Paps makes his way into the lead of this battle with the DRS. But he and Moreira have done an incredible job so far this race in working together and just fighting their way up the field. They have demonstrated how to do it right, whereas Laminen and Neeb we saw earlier on, they tried to do it, but they executed it just wrong. But Moreira and Pabst, there is not... Well, to be fair, their drive has been absolutely perfect because they were able to stay within the DRS range, at least, with those hards on. When they switched to the mediums, they were able to take advantage a lot better than the Tez drivers were able to early on. And now they're on the hards, are the Tez drivers, and they are struggling. It's another 8/10 that Pabst has closed in on Bowman this last lap. And lap 22 of this Grand Prix, you get the sense that this is not over.
Oh, it certainly is not. 2.9 is now that gap. They have gained about a second over the course of lap 21, as we're on now lap 22 of 29. This really is becoming crunch time. Pabst, Moreira and Basner do need to work together here. No room for fighting. If you were one of their engineers in the put calls, you'll be like, just, even though you are opposition, work together for now. Friendly until they become enemies at the end of this race. So we're heading down into turn 6 and 7. Will Moreira be able to get close enough for the switch through turn 8 and into turn 9? So out of turn 7 we go. 3 attempts is that gap. 2 attempts, he surely will go for the switch this time around from Marcel Pabst. We'll see him put out to that right hand side. There goes the McLaren driver, but it won't really gain them too much time overall in terms on to Conrad Bohm in front. But just the grip difference they have through turn 9 does help them find 2/10 of a second. So they are gaining still around about that second a lap on the Aston Martin. It's now going to drop down to 2.2, 2.1. So it is coming down about a second, between 8/10 and a second a lap to the Aston Martin. They really are pushing on, and Conrad Bohm can maybe kiss his race-winning chances goodbye within the next few laps. Podium is the best he can do, but Fernando Moreira, he is hunting down his old teammates. His old team is in the lead. He's now joined TTM after that break, and he's looking to return with a bang, with a race victory. And that's certainly what he's looking on course to do here in Abu Dhabi.
We talked about how much of a story it would be at the start of the broadcast. Little did we know how close we were actually going to get to it, and we might even get it in the last 6 laps of this Grand Prix, as that time is just ticking down and down and down. Moreira's not even pushing, he's just using those tyres to their fullest and, well, closing down that gap. Pabst and Beisner able to stay within range. I think that may be your podium if Conrad Bohm is, unless Conrad Bohm is able to defend. But hey, I may be underestimating the abilities of the Tez driver to defend. We haven't seen him need to do that as Tamas Kokani makes his way past Marnik. He's up into 5th place. 2.8 seconds, though, means that they're going to have to settle likely for P5 and P6 with Sasha Neeb and Thomas Laminen fighting for those positions as well. Conrad Bohm, 1.7 seconds, so it's stabilised over this last lap between himself and Nando, but it's still coming down, just not by as much. So maybe those mediums, the effect that they had is starting to wear off. We saw the mediums start to wear off around this point in the first stint. And, Conrad Bohm, he's lighting up those hards at the right time. 1.4 seconds is now the gap. If it gets to under 1 second, he's lost the race. That is a fact. But it's just stabilizing now above that 1 second mark. And so Bohm, we said that there was likely just going to be a battle for the race leaders. Lola Vera, who's been completely irrelevant this race, has retired from the session in the pit lane. I don't even think we've switched to him once, but Marcel Pabst makes his way past Nando Moreira into P2, and that gap, it's very, very near now, that 1 second. This is where that time is gained. It's in those DRS straights. And, well, to be fair, through the rest of it, they're pretty even. But through the DRS straights, the amount of time that Moreira, Pabst and Beisner are able to gain, it's absolutely ridiculous. They gained 3/10 on that last lap, and it was even more before that second DRS straight. They'd almost got it down to under a second, and I think on this next lap, that could be the fate that Bohm is resigned to. Lap 25 of this Grand Prix is what we're going to be on, and I think we could be seeing the first burst of DRS for all 3 of these drivers.
Yeah, I think we will. 1.2 is that gap currently. 25-0 from Moreira Lat. Weren't able to quickly see what Bohm did, but it really is just now that crossover point at 25-3. So 3 attempts were found from Moreira on Bohm, but look how close he's getting. It's just not enough. It's 1.1 and the gap's going straight back up. So Bohm using his ERS to defend through that first sector. That's where he knows he can find that time to keep the drivers behind him at bay is through that first sector. Burn that battery. Make sure you have the run all the way down. It's one of the key momentum zones of this circuit. And if you're able to pull that one off, you'll be able to keep that gap at a nice steady distance. So out of turn 6 and 7, Moreira getting closer and closer. That gap now down to 9/10 of a second. Could we now see the battle commence? I don't think it'll be as easy as what we were saying it was going to be, because those tyres looking to be extremely equal at this phase of the Grand Prix. 7-lap-old mediums versus 14-lap-old hards. They wear at a different rate, of course, so those mediums will be feeling like those hards at this stage of the race. As Bohm will, of course, lose the position at first because, of course, he won't have any DRS, but he could still fight back in this one. So for TES, it's not all over yet as we head through the final corner to start lap 26 to 29. DRS will be at Nando Moreira's hands if he keeps it clean through the first sector. This is now game on between Basner, Pabst and Moreira versus the TES driver of Bohm. Mediums versus the hard runner. Oh, we got to see Bohm be able to hang on? Is he going to be able to keep the drivers behind at bay? Or will Moreira, Pabst and Basner breeze by him and try to build that gap off into the distance?
I think, to be fair, they've pretty much been equal through the first sector and the last sector. It's the DRS zones that have really put pay to Conrad Bohm's lead, with the fact that they're able to gain so much in them, and they'll be gaining even more as Nando Moreira is now down to 4/10 behind Conrad Bohm. It'll get to even less as the second DRS, well, the second burst of DRS is what Moreira is going to get. Heading down now through what is essentially a DRS straight. It's not quite as straight as they claim. And Conrad Bohm, he's just going to hold them off for the time being. But yeah, they are matched through all the sectors, barring the second sector, which is where all that DRS is coming from. And Conrad Bohm, he will be hoping that it gets even worse. Sasha Neeb, though, his afternoon, or his evening now, has just gotten worse. He's had an issue in that Sector 3 and he's dropped down to P9. Unfortunate for him because he's run such a good race. But P9 is where he's going to have to settle. Lap 27 of this race, just 3 laps to go then. And Conrad Bohm leads this pack away. He's led the pack away so many times, but that pack has not been baying as they are at this current moment. Nando Moreira 4/10 behind. It's now 3/10 as they head through the first sector, and Bohm will be squirming. We saw him struggle with the pressure of Nando Moreira in qualifying. Could he be struggling with the pressure of Nando Moreira in the race? The McLaren with almost a full ERS tank, he will be using it all up now as he tries to get past the Aston Martin on lap 27 of 29. He'll want to pass now. He's going to back out. That move into turn 7, not as appealing as the move into turn number 9, and that is the move that he's going to aim for. Nando Moreira with the DRS flap open. He is going to close. He's going to pull to the outside line, and the McLaren takes the lead of the race. The former TES driver getting revenge on his, well, what would have been his teammate had he stayed. And the TTM driver moves now into the lead of the race. Lap 27 of 29. And Nando Moreira finally takes the top spot.
Yeah, Moreira finally into the lead of this Grand Prix, but very wide through 14. That was lucky to not be his final warning for track limits, but look how much he's trying to push. He's trying to break away from Conrad Bohm behind, but Bohm is still under pressure here from the V-carb of Marcel Pabst. Yes, Pabst has a penalty, but he could still maybe try and get that removed. It is not all set in stone just yet. Even if Pabst wins this race and he drops down the field, he still could win this one in the steward's room. So as we head down into turn 5, Moreira hasn't done enough from Conrad Bohm behind. But the thing is, the attack is going to be the best form of defence for the Aston Martin, so he might have to shoot his shot just one lap too soon on the McLaren in front. Pabst, though, will want to be in that hot seat for this final lap. As We're heading down into turn 6 and 7. No one going for a move. Baysner trying to force an error from Paps. Conrad Bone going a little bit wide. This could force a nice little switcheroo here from Marcel Paps. And here we are then. Look at the speed difference on the exit of the corner. We could see 3 wide with Lucas Baysner trying to get involved. There goes Paps looking to the outside line. Not able to get it done just yet. He's just going to have to sit behind. But this is going to invite Lucas Baysner to have an attack through turn 9. Not close enough into turn 10. We're about to start the final tour within the next few corners. There goes Baysner to the inside of Marcel Paps. He wants to be in 3rd place on this final lap, but it won't be enough to get by just yet in this final sector. But that might have just ruined all chance of a challenge from Marcel Paps on Conrad Bone, as Bone is now set somewhat free to chase down Moreira in front of him. But it's a big slide out of the final corner as we start the final tour here of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix here in CEE, and this is gonna be an absolute beautiful final lap to watch. Moreira leading the way, the comeback kid. Is he going to be able to pull off an upset on his old team, TES, and win for TTM? And that will be a big win for the Papaya outfit, and it's a big slide for Conrad Bone. That might put Moreira just too far clear on this final lap, but no, look at the battery game. They're getting closer and closer and closer. Will Bone go for the attack? Paps to the inside line. We're nearly 3 wide into turn 6 and 7. There's contact between Paps and Nando Moreira. Moreira will try use the best he can of this drive, of his battery, to try defend here. Paps going to be steaming at him at a rate of knots. Conrad Bone still in this fight. To the outside goes Marcel Paps. Can he pull this one off? Here comes Moreira holding it on the inside line. There's contact between the pair. Moreira holds on through turn 9, but we still have the braking zone of turn 11 and 12. Here we go then. Paps to the outside. It'll be the inside for 13, but no, he loses the rear end. This is allowing Baysner to get past Bone, and Nando Moreira heading through the final few corners now. The comeback kid, he causes the upset. The Moreira, this will be a big and popular win here for TTM. Across the line, he wins under the lights. Moreira, the comeback kid, wins. And wow, what a final lap that was. Baysner ending up in 2nd place, followed by Conrad Bone. I need to catch my breath after that hectic final lap. But for Moreira, it is a dream return here for to TE. The McLaren comes out on top, and TTM will be in sheer delight with that one.
That was an incredible return. The story, well, the first chapter has really brought incredible success for Nando Moreira. He takes victory here under the lights in Abu Dhabi. What an incredible win that was. Just holding his nerve on that final lap when he faced all that pressure from behind, from Baysner, from Bohm, and from Paps. Obviously, we saw Paps drop down with that penalty. We don't know if you can get that removed or not, but at the moment, your podium is Nando Moreira taking the victory ahead of Lucas Baysner, the TES driver that replaced Moreira in the team. Conrad Bohm in 3rd place with Marcel Paps in that 4th position. That's what we were waiting for 12 laps. As soon as we saw Moreira, Baysner, Paps, and Marnik dive into the pits, we went, all right then, game on. And it certainly was game on. And Moreira, well, he leveled up quicker than everybody else. He managed to get past Bohm when nobody else could. And from then, he was just able to control the pace of everybody in the final couple of laps. And what a drive it was at the end. Tamas Kokani, interestingly enough, has been handed the driver of the day by the game. Not sure on what basis they've given him that, but well, I mean, now must be a good time to talk about our personal driver of the day. Put yours in the chat and we will have a discussion. But personally, you can't look past Nando Moreira. What a drive he did under the incredible pressure that he was on the entire race. And he came out on top.
Yep, on his TTM debut, Nando Moreira comes out on top. Wow, just what a drive that really was from him. And he can be in sheer delight of that one. But, wow, he comes in to a new team expecting probably a top 5 result after a month out. A top 5, top 10 finish. He probably would have been happy with that. But coming in, the comeback kid happens. And he wins his first race not only for TTM, but as a whole here this season. also with this, I think it is TTM's first ever PC win in a competition like this. So huge congratulations to them. Nando Moreira with a superb drive, and what a signing it has looked out to be on his debut. So your results are as followed. Moreira with a 6-10th gap over Lucas Bazner. Conrad Bowman 3rd, Marcel Paps 4th, Marnik 5th, Lamanen 7th, Kokeni 8th, Lang 9th, Lindstrom in 10th, and Sasha Neeb will round out your top 10. Of course, Kokeni will have that 5-second time penalty, so he will drop down to about 10th, I think, in this Grand Prix. So outside your top 10 are as follows: Amado, Jones, Sam, Knott, Raddock, Russell, Lighty, and then your 2 DNFs of Lolo, Vieira, and Matthew Bassett. And just what a race that was. Moreira defended a hard-charging Marcel Paps and also a Conrad Bone on that final lap. But it's a similar story to last week. Thomas Eng not qualifying 1st and 3rd and not able to capitalise off it, with only with luckily getting on the podium here this evening, and with Kokeni dropping down to 10th place.
Yeah, really not the race that that Tez would have wanted, especially with that qualifying pace that they had. But we saw it last week. We've seen it again, how they just struggle with that pace in the race. And although Bohm got closer to a podium than he did last time out, it's another week of waiting for the Tez drivers to get onto that podium. Confirmation in the chat, by the way, that it was TTM's first PC only win. But Giovanni has won once for them. So, I mean, it's an incredible feat from Nando Moreira, coming back after a month away from the game, saying he didn't enjoy it, but he's come back, and he's come back in style, taking what is a mature victory. It's a trained victory. This is the drive of somebody who's been doing this track for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's the drive of somebody who's been dominating a championship. He hasn't been. He's not been doing anything. So it's, well, even more impressive in that sense, and slightly scary because of what may be to come from the TTM driver.
Oh, yeah, 100%. The drivers will be looking out. I mean, I think, well, Thomas Eng already knew he had so much potential on his hands. It's unfortunate that he left them. And that probably is what makes this so bittersweet for Moreira, is that he just beat his old team, who he left a month ago. He joined TTM. This was meant to be a whole new adventure. He went to a team that wasn't as established on the PC side as it is the console, and wanted to bring them to the top. And he's instantly won his first Grand Prix for them. So, yeah, for Moreira, it is an absolute masterclass of a performance. It looked like somebody he's not left the game, as you said, who's not stepped foot away from here. So, if he's able to carry this on for the rest of the season, expect big things in the championship when it comes to TTM, and expect them to be at least in that top 4 of the standings if he's able to keep on that momentum. But what a signing that really is turning out to be. Everyone thought it might have been a risky gamble for Moreira to go there, and instantly pulls off a big surprise here this evening. And yeah, I don't even think me and you really expected that. We knew he was quick coming into this, but of course with that month away, we thought he might have a few cobwebs on his shoulders, and instantly he's disproven that.
Yeah, I mean we looked at him pre-race and we went, maybe because he probably has a higher, or had when he stopped, a higher reputation than any of these drivers in this field. But just to win in the way that he did it with such maturity, it's so incredible. And well, he'll certainly be a front runner in our predictions for the future. I believe one of us, actually, I think it was you, predicted him to take the victory, but that was after we saw his lap that put him P2, and when he challenged both the Tez drivers. The Tez drivers, though, they felt threatened by Nando Moreira today. They certainly felt threatened by Nando Moreira today, and they were just unable to pull it off again. They went for the alternate strategy in the end, which would have been probably the base strategy that the game would have given you, mediums onto hards. That's not what everybody else went on, or everybody else within the top 10 went on, barring Thomas Lang. And it just didn't pay off for them. They thought they were being safe with the medium strategy at the start, switching onto the hards. In the end,
it turned out to be a gamble, and a gamble that really didn't pay dividends.
No, it really didn't. And I mean, I feel like they really gambled on just trying to pull away from the rest of the field on those mediums. That's what I personally believe was their whole intention of using that yellow wall tyre at the start of the race, was get on the mediums early, make sure you can build that gap, and then you can go from there. You get the undercut into perspective as well. So they probably would have wanted a 3-4 second lead by the time they came into the pit lane. And if you add that on with the 9-second undercut they already got, that's like 12, 13 seconds you're talking. And that would have been the optimal strategy. That would have won them the race. But because, of course, they weren't able to pull away, it just threw that strategy all up in the air. That's the double jeopardy of it. You've got the good side of it. You've got the good side where if you're able to break away, you're in the money. You've instantly got that gap. You get that extra gap through the undercut. Very, very difficult to bring that back down. Then you've got the bad side, which I just mentioned. What happened in the race? They weren't able to pull away. They got stuck with everybody else. And then they tried their best with the undercut. But just the rate of the medium tyres compared to them, it just wasn't enough. So for Thomas saying they'll somewhat be kicking themselves. I mean, with Kokeni, it probably was the smart choice to try that. But for Bona as well, that really wasn't the strategy I would have went for him, because he didn't have that penalty over his head. I would have stuck him on the same strategy as everybody else, and at least you have one driver trying the strategy everybody else is doing, and you can somewhat cover that off. But Thomas saying, once again, just they get a good qualifying. Like last week, they didn't have the greatest race. And the same here this evening. So the only people they can put blame to is really themselves. They weren't able to optimise the strategy, but they certainly do show themselves as a team that once they get the strategy right, they really can put a fight at the top of the field and really be the front runners for the championship.
And yeah, I think I'd hope at least that they're going to be able to get the strategy right very, very soon. I mean, we've got 3 races before the winter break. We've got China, we've got USA, and then we've got Qatar. Will join us next week for that Chinese race, the 27th of the 11th, around the Shanghai International Circuit. But until next time, it's goodbye.